loyalty,
duty,
respect,
selfless service, honor,
integrity,
and personal courage.
What is going on, everyone? This is Staff Sergeant Noda with the United States Army National Guard. We are back for another edition of Not Your Average Shows. I am joined by my co-hosts, Sergeant First Class Joshua Stevens, Staff Sergeant Greg Johnson, and today we have two very special guests, First Lieutenant Michael Joyner and Second Lieutenant J. Lee Pineda. Everyone, welcome back. Thank you for coming on another edition of Not Your Average Joe's Officer Edition. We are so glad to have everyone here. I'm just going to start off real quick. When did you guys know that the military was a path that y'all wanted to take and join the United States Indiana Army National Guard?
So I'll start off. When I knew that I wanted to get into the military, it's kind of not the typical route. I didn't have any family. I was in the military, anything like that. So it was actually, I was sitting in a jail cell at Rikers Island, and it was just bad. I was going through some stuff at that time, and I kind of made the decision as I was sitting there waiting to go to court that I wanted to do something different. So I had to kind of just push me in the right direction. I was actually reading the Bible at the time, and then just kind of feeling down. And I said to myself, it's got to be something more than this. Something's got to be better. So I made the decision at that point. Once I got out of there, I was lucky enough to get released the same day, and I went straight to the recruiter after that.
That's awesome. That's a great start.
I wasn't expecting that.
I wasn't expecting that. Was a great start. Correction, it's the Indiana Army National Guard, not United States Indiana Army National Guard.
Right.
Clearly not enough coffee yet. Lieutenant Pineda, how about yourself? Why did you join the Indiana Army National Guard?
It was actually a really spur-of-the-moment thing. My whole family was kind of in shock when it happened. I had a scholarship for nursing in Ohio, and I think I had filled something out my junior year. They were like, we can pay for this, we can pay for that. I didn't really think about it, and then my hometown recruiter just randomly texted me 3 weeks before
That's what we do.
graduated high school, and for some reason I texted him back, and that week I went down to MEPS and got sworn in just out of nowhere.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wish everyone was like that.
Yeah, right. If it just random text message a week later, they're in the guard. Right.
Yeah.
Changing their life. Changing their life.
So I don't care who wants to start, ma'am. You can start.
Sure.
Tell us about where you went to college, what you majored in, stuff like that.
So I went right here downtown, IUPUI.
Ooey
Reppin'.
pooey.
Reppin'.
Go
I just graduated this May with a bachelor's in biology.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Did you enjoy your time at IUPUI?
I did.
Is that an IU degree? Because this is important to me.
This matters.
I think biology is a Purdue degree.
Okay, well, then I don't want to talk to you
Right.
anymore. Go ahead,
Lieutenant
sir.
Joyner. We're gonna
Sorry.
switching gears here.
So I also graduated from IUPUI. I have a bachelor's degree in biotechnology, Purdue degree.
Oh my God. I'm leaving.
Yeah. And I graduated in December of 2016.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So I have same format. Were either one of you enlisted before you actually decided to go the officer route?
Yeah, so I was enlisted. I actually started out in the New York Army National Guard, private joiner back in 2009, and then came on active duty here on an ADOS position, made it all the way to E5, then transferred over to the Indiana Army National Guard, and then in 2016 got my commission and became a second lieutenant.
What about you, ma'am?
Yeah, straight out of high school, swore in as a PV2 combat medic in 2015.
Sweet.
That's awesome. So you guys had a little taste of the enlisted side.
Yeah.
So when did you decide you wanted to become an officer?
After I got back from AIT, you know how everyone's all like, I want to go active now.
Yeah.
I've been living this life for 8 months. I don't
Right.
want to come back.
Right.
Well, my parents were like, well, you still got to go to college. I was like, you right. So,
I hear the Guard has great educational benefits. Is that accurate?
oh, yes.
I hear that's a rumor.
No, it's great. No. One of my best friends I actually met in my first RSP unit. She was in ROTC at IUPUI and was like, just come. It'll be fun. You can just try it out. And I was like, sure, fine. If you're there, I guess.
Right.
That's so awesome. So I guess you went through the ROTC route, right?
Yes.
So could you tell us more about what your average weekly schedule is like during ROTC? And then kind of caveat off of that, like what additional monetary stipends did you get just being in ROTC? Because all ROTC is a class, right?
It's a life. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. No joke. Yeah. So starting with Monday, we have PT at 6:30, and then everyone.
6:30
Yes.
a.m.?
Yes.
Okay,
0630 for your
Right.
military folks.
Right
Right.
before we go to classes, we have a nice workout. And Tuesday, Thursdays are our actual military in-class classes. So Monday, Wednesday, PT. If you're not doing well, PT on Thursday as well. And then there's a 2-hour lab at 7 a.m. on Fridays where we do like tactical stuff, soldering, all that good stuff.
So what are the military classes? So you mentioned the lab is like soldering, basic soldering skills, stuff like that. What is the actual military classes like?
So your MS1 year is basically like basic training. You learn your ranks, soldiers, creed, like minimum stuff. It's really easy. Like it's an easy A, which is why they do that. They're like, if you're a freshman and you want an easy A, come do ROTC classes.
Are you listening, IUPUI? Are you listening out there to this?
MS2, I think it's a little bit longer. So MS1 is only one time a week. It's like an hour. MS2, I think it's an hour and a half. And again, it's an easy A. We're trying to have like these young people like want to join.
Right.
MS3 year is your hardest year because that's right before you go to advanced camp, which is like your culminating event. It's where you get evaluated as a leader and you get all your points for what branch you want. So that one's twice a week and you get a lot put on you.
Because when you're at the MS3 or MS4 level, correct me if I'm wrong, you're basically running the program, correct? You're basically learning how to lead. Was that say it's an accurate statement or
So your MS4 year, you basically run the whole battalion.
really?
But MS3, it's all tactics because when we get evaluated, it's basically you're an infantry officer because it's the easiest way to
evaluate people.
evaluate people.
That's
Exactly.
fair. Now, did you have students from? I know. So you went to IUPUI. You had students from Marion University, University of Indiana, other surrounding areas. I think it's Capital Warrior Battalion, right?
Yes.
So there's other. Just because you go to another school doesn't mean you have to. There's, for example, University of Indianapolis does not have ROTC, right? But you can still go to IUPUI's ROTC.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I guess changing gears though. So Lieutenant Joyner, could you talk to us about what the state OCS? Because you went through state OCS, right, sir?
Yes.
Could you tell us about what that phenomenal experience was like, sir?
Yeah, so phenomenal. Yeah, it's an interesting choice of words. So it's a 13-month-long program, and it kicks off with your phase 1, which is a 2-week annual training event. And basically in that time, you're learning the basics. So they give you this book. It's basically everything you need to know to get through OCS. So you do that for 2 weeks. They yell at you. They basically treat you like you're a private. You're back at basic training. And then we go to classes every day, deaf by PowerPoint. And then after that, we take tack breaks, which is we go outside and you do push-ups and sit-ups. And basically all of that is to put as much stress on you as possible to see if you can make it or not, right? So the only thing that they're trying to do is to evaluate you to make sure that you're good enough to serve as an officer, right? Because you're going to have stresses every day. So they're really trying to see if maybe this is for you. And if it's not for you, then it's okay. Just raise your hand and be like, hey, I don't really want to do this. There were people there that said in that first 2 weeks, I didn't want to do that. So then after those 2 weeks, then you go into what is like the long-term, here's the marathon part of it. So that part is 12 months, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, 13 months. And you're drilling. So it's basically you go to drill 3 days, starting on Friday and on Sunday.
Yep.
And you basically go through a bunch of classes. And they basically treat you as in your phase 1, but you progressively get kind of perks throughout the day. So we used to have to say like chow hall procedures and all this other stuff. That was really crazy. And it's all about attention to detail. Mm-hmm. So I look back on it now, and I thought it was silly at the time, but it's really about attention to detail. So, you get those breaks. So basically, you'll start off that first IDT. It's basically just a continuation of that 2-week period where they were just messing with you. And then by the end of it, if your class was good, then you basically came in the drill and you basically ran your own drill. And then they just left you alone. And then finally, it's the phase 3, which is the last 2 weeks. And then that's where we're going into the field and you apply basically everything that you learn, troop leading procedures. And it's an evaluation just to make sure that you're good to go.
Who was your senior TAC officer?
It's Captain Eversole.
Okay.
He's asking because I believe you taught that class,
I was
correct?
an OCS instructor. That's why I'm asking who it was.
Yep.
So the course is ran by both NCOs and officers then, is that right?
So we had one NCO, and it was Sergeant First Class Purdue. He was
Purdue.
more like he kind of did the QA QC on the back end, made sure everything was good to go. So he was the executor of the plan, and then for the training, it was more officer led.
Yep.
Awesome. Actually, Lieutenant Pineda, same question for you then. So was it more NCO or officer level instructors at ROTC?
It was a really good mix of both. So the NCOs were really for the MS 1 and 2 years because that's like your basic training type of thing. Officers, actually our battalion commander was all about MS 4s the whole time.
Really?
Yes. So we worked one-on-one with a lieutenant colonel every day.
Awesome. That's pretty cool.
Before I go to the next question, Lieutenant Joyner, you had mentioned that you made it to E5 before you decided to go through the commissioning program. What was it like coming from probably leading a squad or a team, going to OCS, and then getting treated like a private again? How was that change?
Humbling, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
So for me, it was like I made it this far. I made it past all of that stuff, and I was like, man, I got to go back through this. I don't even know if I really want to do this. So it was kind of a humbling experience. I said to myself, if I really want to do this thing, then I just got to just
Temporary
shut up
pain.
and take
Right.
it.
Yeah, temporary pain.
That's about it. So that's exactly what I did.
All right, so the next question is for both of you again, but ma'am, you can start if you'd like. What branch are you, and how did you get into that branch?
So I commissioned as a quartermaster officer,
Okay.
which is logistics for those who don't know. At first I was med services because my major is biology, but it was a lot easier to get AGR jobs when you're logistics because everyone needs logistics officers always.
right.
So, and I'm really organized and I really love it.
Awesome.
We'll see.
To clarify,
how it goes.
AGR is full-time Army National Guard, right?
Yes.
So you're able, because of your basic officer branch, that's what it's called, right? Basic officer branch. You're able to be a full-time Army National Guard soldier here in Indiana or wherever you choose to be.
Yes.
So that's phenomenal. Sorry to cut you guys off. My apologies.
Yep.
Sure.
Good. Oh yeah. So I'm.
Go ahead, sir.
I am actually an infantry officer. So I kind of decided at that point. I've always liked the infantry. I just didn't choose it when I first got in, and so when I went officer route, I was like, I don't want to just sit around and do nothing again, right? I want to actually get out and rock a little bit,
Army
and do
stuff.
some stuff, right? So that's why I chose infantry. Not to say that the other branches don't do anything.
Yeah.
It's more of, it's kind of like the sword, right? So the other branches support the sword, and then the infantry is the sword. Then you have field artillery. It's an argument, but
Yeah, you're the queen of battle.
Yeah, queen of battle.
You're the
Queen of battle, queen of battle. Yeah.
yeah. But your combat arms is kind of like the sword, and then all your supporting branches are the support for that. And so I kind of wanted to be a part of that community.
What does an infantry officer do, sir?
All right, so it's different. So I'm coming from a reconnaissance background. So my company is Charlie Troop 10152 CAV. We are a reconnaissance and surveillance target acquisition squadron down in Salem and New Albany. So my role as the platoon leader is to basically set up the mission, do any mission type planning. So I received a mission from my company commander, and then I make the initial plan for the teams. right? Because we don't operate in platoon level, we operate at team level. So each team individually has to come up with their own plan. And so in the planning phase, all of the teams come together with me and we sit down and we go through the entire plan of what they're going to do, our insertion plan, extraction plan, all that other stuff. And basically that is my job, is to facilitate their execution of the mission, make sure everything is established and good to go so that when they hit ground, they're just moving to their OPs.
Now, neither of you guys enlisted as an 09 Sierra, an officer candidate, right? What was your enlisted MOS?
My enlisted MOS was 88 Mike.
There we
So,
go.
not necessarily 11 Bravo, not
No.
necessarily infantry. So your enlisted MOS didn't necessarily decide what your basic officer branch was, right?
Right.
Was yours a quartermaster, ma'am?
No, I was a combat medic.
68 whiskey?
Yes.
So again, it goes to prove that your enlisted MOS didn't necessarily decide at all.
Not at all.
Your basic officer branch. What did decide that? How did you pick your basic officer branch?
It was kind of what I said earlier. So a lot of people are like, whatever my major is has to correspond with what branch you get, which is not the case at all. You can literally pick whatever branch you want.
Really?
So yes. So again, I chose mine because I wanted to go AGR.
But is there like an order of merit list necessarily? Like how do you? So
Oh, yes.
basically, how do you get decided, or how does that get selected for you?
So OML is our accessions kind of like diagram. So a lot of it is all PT, GPA, and then advanced camp. And the higher you score, the more likely it is to get whatever you want.
When you say score, what are the grading metrics? Is right there. What are we talking about?
So PT, obviously, as high as you can get.
Fair.
Right.
And then schoolwork is very, very important. I think it's like a third of your accessions points.
Really?
Oh,
It-
Yes.
Is it the same for state OCS, sir?
I can guess. I don't really know. I know from my experiences, it was more of the evaluations, and because it was Indiana State that ran it, so
Right.
they basically picked who they wanted to go into what slot. So as long as you performed well, your name pretty much got out there. And then when they went to the table to discuss where all the current class was going to go, they basically had a sheet of what was available in the state. And then they would pick based off, okay, this person wants this, right? And that's how that person got their first choice because they were on the OML for the actual class, and then basically the slot was open, so they got first choice and they got their pick.
So I guess another way to put that, though, sir, is that because it was, how big was your class?
My class, if I remember, I think it was like 12 people.
So because it was so intimate versus, you know, a federal OCS, which is a lot of individuals applying to be officers, because it was such an intimate level, they were kind of able to see this person might be a good officer in this branch or might be a good officer in this branch. Is that kind of the same thing you're saying right there?
Yeah. So when I went in to pick my branches, they were actually giving me choices, right? So they actually sat me down and they were like, I think you would be a good fit for this. Because initially, I was going to go into chem. My degree is in biotechnology. I wanted to go to med school. So they were like, really like, I was already working in a laboratory.
Yeah.
So they were like, chem is my first choice, but I really wanted to do something fun. And they were like, chem, there's not a lot of slots.
No. Right.
So they kind of geared my path, and that's probably one of the more benefits of state OCS is you get that one-on-one from a state representative who knows where the slots are, who knows what the upward progression is, and so they can pretty much tell you like, you're thinking about this, but I think you're a good fit for this.
This would be better for your career because it's
Yep.
such an intimate level. I mean, 12 to how many instructors there are, but that's a great ratio. So they can really guide your career ahead of time. That's phenomenal. I'm sorry to take away. I know you had a question.
No, it's
Sorry
fine.
about that.
You were just running
just-
away, man. I'm just going to let you run away like that. So, quartermaster officer, infantry officer, what does your typical drill look like? And do you just show up on a Friday and be like, let's be an officer? Or are you planning for the whole week or the whole month before that whole drill weekend?
So I just commissioned in May, and because of COVID and everything, I actually haven't been to my first drill yet.
Okay.
So
Fresh lieutenant.
Yes.
Can you
fresh
imagine what it would be
meat.
like, though?
You give us
I can
picture for
I
us,
can make
ma'am.
some stuff up, but
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, it's a little bit different. I do a lot of planning beforehand. It's dependent on if we're going to the field that day whatever admin tasks that we have, like supply. Right now, I'm functioning as the executive officer. So I'm no longer in that planning phase with the teams. I'm more of with the supply sergeant, making sure that our TAs, our training areas, are laid on for drill, making sure everything is situated, making sure our logistics plan is coordinated for. Which is really, in the Guard, it's really not my job. It is my job, but it's my job to oversee it, right? To understand it so that when I get on ground during IDT, I can execute along with the supply sergeant. I could take the burden from the supply sergeant off of him and let him focus on just supporting the force, and then I can kind of facilitate the support afterwards.
That's really cool. I guess, what are some military aspirations that you two both have? I know you're relatively new. You've been in for 11 years. What are some aspirations you have for yourself? Is there a certain rank you'd like to achieve before you either get out, either retire, or pick another career? Are you going to make it to retirement? Do you want to hold a certain level of command?
Yeah, so I've been in 11 years now, so I'm a lifer.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
pretty
over
much,
the-
yep. So I'm a lifer. I probably want to make it to colonel. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's probably the aspirations that I have. I'm working towards that actively right now.
So you want to be a brigade level commander? That's like
Yep.
what your goal is.
Yep.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
That's so cool. Go ahead. What about yourself, ma'am?
That is also me. I'm a lifer. Hopefully, we'll see. I was actually pre-med like him until my junior year, and then I was like, the Army is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So we'll see where it gets. We'll see where it gets me.
That's so cool. I mean, there's just, I guess to go back a little bit, how many hours do you think you spend before a drill, sir? Because you're a older lieutenant, about to be a captain here soon, right? So at that level of command, how many hours do you feel like you spend before that drill weekend?
It all depends. It all depends. If it's a home station drill where we stay at the armory for drill, there's not a lot to do. There's just not a lot of planning to do. I basically get the classes and I just basically push them down to either the platoon sergeant and I say, hey, these classes need to get done. Assign someone within reason who understands the class to teach this class on drill weekend. If it's going to the field, then it becomes a little bit challenging. And why I say that is sometimes the plan is dictated in the form of an op order to us, and then it's easy for me to now take that op order and then disseminate it down to the team and then work on the plan from there. A lot of times in this world, in this environment, we don't have a lot of time to execute the plan that way. It's not always executed that way. So it relies on the leader to come up with a plan kind of ad hoc. You'll have all the information that you need, training areas, stuff like that, any support packages that you have. That'll all be planned accordingly, but not necessarily the actual plan of what you need to execute. So I'll spend a lot of time beforehand, maybe like I would say 10, 20 hours a week planning if there's not a lot of beforehand planning done.
Wow. I guess, we actually asked so many great questions, but we forgot a big one. What is a commissioned officer? In your own words.
Yeah, so the commissioned officer is different for me. I think the NCOs make the officer, right? So I'm a strong proponent of just not getting in the NCO's way. I think a lot of officers, especially new officers, what they do is they get in the NCO's way. Like they want to say, oh, I know how to do this. I have this plan. I want to execute. Well, you could have a great plan and it could be a great idea, right? But as soon as that plan goes to get executed, it just falls apart because there's just
The real world knowledge isn't quite there yet.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So an officer is a facilitator of the NCOs. That's how I feel. You are there to support them. You are there to lead them, but you have to follow before you can lead, and that I say. So you have to learn from them, and then once you learn enough, or you feel that you learned enough, you never learn enough. You can pretty much guide them on where they need to go.
That's a phenomenal statement, sir.
I was gonna say that's an amazing
that's-
answer.
Can you top
You
it?
got 45.
I don't know. I don't know if I can add anything onto that. That was an amazing answer.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm sorry. I just had the question. Like, and we talk about as recruiters, we talk about, hey, there's enlisted officer, and of course there's warrant officers. But we don't. It's almost hard to explain to a civilian, what is a commissioned officer? How is it someone that comes in with a 4-year degree or 90 college credits towards a bachelor's degree, goes through state OCS or ROTC or a program like that? Immediately, once they complete OCS, is one of our bosses. He has 15 years of service,
11.
11 years of service. You have like 30 years of service.
No.
I have 11 years of service. Lieutenant Pineda has 45 days as commissioned officer, but she outranks me.
Wow. Just giving her a hard time there. Hey.
But it's so hard to explain to a civilian how is it, what is a commissioned officer? They're a supervisor. They come in as a manager. They're there to manage troops, create plans, and have the NCOs, these sergeants, execute those plans. Would you agree with that statement, sir, ma'am? Cool.
So, ma'am, you said that you just recently graduated in May.
Yes.
Yeah. So, do you have a civilian job? Are you looking for a civilian job? What do you do Monday to Friday?
I actually just got offered ADOS orders.
Okay, there we go.
In Carmel, so
Nice.
we'll see how it.
With recruiting or?
Yes.
Okay, what are you going to be doing?
I'm basically gonna be telling the officer side of the story.
Okay, yeah.
Because everyone's going to college now.
Yeah.
They don't want to not go to college. It's not something that happens a lot anymore. So they want a person that can accurately answer questions and tell everyone.
The officer story.
Well, and you
Exactly.
have the most recent
Exactly.
ROTC experience, and you can speak on it like more so than any of us
Right.
can.
With that, actually, how much did you pay for college?
I got paid to go to college.
There
Can
we
you
go.
Can you say that again into the microphone a
We
little
talked
bit?
about that last. We talked about that like four episodes ago.
Yeah, so the National Guard, so a lot of people don't do National Guard and ROTC, but I did both. So National Guard paid for all of tuition. It actually overpaid. I usually got like a grand refund from the National Guard paying my school.
Thank you for your service.
And then ROTC itself gives $5,000 a semester for either tuition or housing, which goes directly to me. There's not like it doesn't go to my school account or anything. It's
Just goes to you to decide how you want to best spend that fiscal allotment.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I did not work during college. We also got a $250 stipend every 2 weeks. That way we could focus on ROTC and not work.
That's awesome. So your main focus was college.
Yes.
And becoming that commissioned officer, that leader in the military.
Yes.
Sorry to cut you off, Sergeant Johnson.
No,
Like,
that's-
I have so many questions.
I know
know.
it's weird. He's cutting you off all the time, and me, and
It's like he runs the show or something.
it's weird. It's
I don't
weird.
get it. Sir, what do you do in this? I know you're new to R&R as well.
Yep.
You just came on, but what'd you do before that?
So before that, I was actually the acting S4 on ADOS
Okay.
down at the CAV, my home unit. And then before that, I just got back from Saudi Arabia on a deployment with 38th Infantry Division.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's another thing too. When you come into the Guard, especially as an officer, and you come in to fill slots, you might not always go where you want to go in your actual branch. So I'm an infantry officer, and I got deployed with 38th
Yeah.
as a division transportation officer. So I did transportation for a
Nice.
theater for 9 months.
But you gain so much knowledge outside of
Yeah,
your branch that you can apply to
Yep.
any position that you end up having in the military.
Yep.
Your
And
resume
that's
is stacked, I bet, sir.
It looks nice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question. So, what piece of advice would you give someone who's like a freshman who's going to get ready to get college and maybe have thought about military service, but maybe they're maybe a little intimidated or something like that? So, what would you tell them if they were maybe thinking about moving that towards that military route, potentially the National Guard?
I would stress to them, it is what you put into it, right? It can suck at times, just like anything in the world.
Any career.
But it can be a stepping stool. Like I said, I wasn't doing too well before I got into the Guard, and now I've got my school paid for. I've gotten a college degree in biotechnology, pretty much paid for, except loans that I wanted to take out. I didn't need to take out loans. I've gotten experiences. I've been to Saudi Arabia, and all of these things that I've gotten, I wouldn't have got if I would have just sat
Right.
idly by. So it is what you put into it. If you're actively seeking opportunities, they'll present themselves. So that's what I would say is work it. you know?
Yeah, I like to call the Guard when I talk to applicants a like Build-A-Bear. It's like build your career.
Ooh.
you can really dictate a lot of the things that you want to do within reason, obviously.
Right.
But like you said, there's not that many people as first lieutenants that come from being in 5 that have a degree, went to Saudi Arabia, are now on active duty in R&R. They're doing all these really cool things. Like that's not that common, but you get to choose those things because you worked hard, you applied yourself, and you made the Guard what you wanted it to be for you.
Ma'am.
I would say just try it, especially ROTC as a freshman. You don't have to commit to anything. See if you like it. I'm sure you actually will. And if you try it, you'll see how everyone else is doing and that it's doable. Everyone's like, it's out of my reach. I don't think I can do this. School's hard. You can do it. We can all do it.
It's about time management.
That's so amazing.
Yes.
Is there anything either of you want to add to this? Anything we didn't cover, you don't think?
No.
Sir, ma'am. Well, I appreciate both y'all coming on the show. Again, thank you all for listening. This has been another edition of Not Your Average Joes. I'm joined by my guests, Lieutenant Joyner, Lieutenant Pineda, of my co-host, Staff Sergeant Johnson, Sergeant First Class Joshua Stevens. Join us next week as we interview Lieutenant Michael Leeper and Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Fippen, who are both members of the Armed Forces and members of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. Until next time, thank you.